we've heard quite a bit already this morning about this agreement. We're being given preferential access to a market of over 500 million people with an annual GDP of 18 trillion. That is huge. Can you please provide the audience with your impressions of CETA from the Canadian perspective? What are the agreement's key aspects?
Well, I think the first question, and something that should be put in context, is that it's not like any free trade agreement. We always refer to NAFTA and FTA. This is much more comprehensive. In fact, CETA is Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement. And that comprehensiveness has to be kept in mind because it's way beyond tariffs. The other dimensions is really trade and services as well. It's procurement, it's IP rights, it's foreign investment, it's around regulatory barriers, or all the non-tariff barriers that are, frankly, really what's at stake now for tapping into that large market.
Now, if we look at industries that would be directly and positively impacted with this trade agreement if it goes through, what would those industries be? Can you give us some specific examples of Canadian industries that stand to benefit from this agreement?
Well, if we look at tariffs for a moment, like the food manufacturing industry, we're talking about seafood and fishery, which is transformed, so it's part of the manufacturing side. Tariffs are still around average 9%, so that will make a difference. In fact, chemical products, rubber, plastic, that's another one where tariffs are not necessarily that high, around 5% right now, but through the sensitivity of the demand out in Europe, we see that that's an industry that really can gain.
Looking at it from the European perspective, what do you see in this deal? What are the advantages to the EU from this deal?
We need to find solutions in order to foster trade, and as many solid trade agreements as possible, that's in our interest, and of course we preferably do that with partners that we trust and value, and Canada is a natural fit on many aspects of that. Economically speaking, yes, I think Canada is the 12th largest trading partner of the EU, so it's not the biggest market that we could open up, but it's an entry point into the Northern American market, which is much bigger and very attractive. There is a sentiment in Europe that Canada is developing very well, also in terms of the growth of the services trade, so it's not all about goods, but it's also about services. And European businesses, quite frankly, see an opportunity there, and it's more feasible to have CETA than it most likely is to have TTIP, which is the North American or the US equivalent to CETA.
When we see recorded or forecasts of 24% growth from Europe to Canada, and you take the size of the market, which is about 500 to 600,000 TU, taking into account the ports of Halifax and Montreal, that's a fairly substantial increase in trade. It's about 100,000 TU over a period of, say, 7 years. And that's a very significant amount of volume to go through the ports. I think once the carriers and their customers and the freight forwarders begin to talk about this, then I think there will be a certain impetus in Europe, and people will start to think about the market in Canada.
As the Chief Commercial Officer at your port, you're responsible for business development. What impact do you see this agreement having on your port and other major European ports?
Port of Antwerp is quite strong in project cargo, so we believe that from this CETA agreement and the developments in infrastructure and investment, this will have quite an impact on project cargo, including machinery to go from Europe to Canada, if played well, also the other way around. And then there are some other sectors where both parts are quite successful. Food and drinks. We love your lobster, and I think you love our chocolate and beer. The focus on organic food, your country, that will create opportunities, because there will be tariff barriers lifted. Clean tech, life sciences, pharmaceuticals. More and more pharmaceuticals are going the maritime way.
When you actually talk to people about Eastern Canada, the Atlantic Gateway here, and you talk about mega projects, you don't even have to mention CETA at this point. You're pushing at an open door. People are very, very interested in mega projects. They're very interested to know more. If you get round to the conversation about CETA, it just excites them even more. So in going around Europe and talking to people and the carriers and some of the shippers about mega projects, they're very excited by it and see it as an opportunity not only to use, to be involved in that business per se, but also to grow their business with Canada.